The desert sun beat down mercilessly on forward operating base Phoenix, casting long shadows across the concrete flight line where Captain Sarah Chun adjusted her wrench for the 100th time that morning. Her hands, stained with hydraulic fluid and engine grease, worked with practiced precision as she calibrated the weapon systems on an F-35 Lightning II. To anyone watching, she looked like every other maintenance technician on the base, coveralls dirty, hair pulled back under a standard issue cap, tool belt heavy around her waist. The other mechanics respected her work. Sarah had earned her reputation over 18 months at Phoenix by solving problems that left senior technicians scratching their heads. When an F-35's targeting computer developed mysterious glitches, they called Sarah. When hydraulic systems leaked in ways that defied the maintenance manual, Sarah found the solution. Her technical knowledge seemed to extend far beyond what any ground crew member should know, but nobody questioned competence that kept their birds flying. Colonel Marcus Webb stood near the operations building, watching Sarah work through his office window. As base commander, he knew things about his personnel that others didn't. He also knew that sometimes the best solutions came from unexpected places, and that conventional thinking had limitations in unconventional times. The situation they faced now definitely qualified as unconventional. The briefing room filled with pilots at 0800 sharp. Major Rick Viper Harrison led the discussion, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had flown combat missions in 3 different theaters. The intelligence reports spread across the table painted a grim picture. Enemy forces had established a forward airbase just 200 miles north, and reconnaissance showed at least 12 advanced fighter aircraft staging for what appeared to be a major offensive. "Their timing is perfect," Major Harrison said, pointing to satellite imagery. "Our main fighter squadron deployed to support operations in the eastern sector yesterday. We got 4 F-35s here, and intel suggests they're planning to hit us with overwhelming numbers." Lieutenant Jake "Rookie" Morrison raised his hand. At 24, he was the youngest pilot in the squadron and still wore the eager expression of someone who believed training scenarios match combat reality. "Sir, for Lightning IIs should be able to handle 12 enemy fighters, especially with our technological advantages." Major Harrison's expression darkened. "That's assuming we can get 4 birds in the air." Lieutenant Collins reported mechanical issues with his aircraft yesterday, and the diagnostics are showing multiple system failures. Maintenance says it'll be at least 48 hours before she's combat ready. The room fell silent. 3 F-35s against 12 enemy fighters represented odds that even the most advanced technology couldn't overcome. The Lightning II was an exceptional aircraft, but mathematics remain mathematics. In air-to-air combat, numbers mattered, and they were about to be badly outnumbered. Captain Sarah Chun continued her work on the flight line, unaware of the discussions happening in the briefing room. Her hands moved with the confidence that came from intimate knowledge of every system, every component, every potential failure point in the F-35. She had spent years studying these aircraft, understanding them in ways that went far beyond maintenance procedures. Her background was unusual for someone wearing a technician's uniform. Sarah held degrees in aerospace engineering and computer science from MIT, with specialized training in advanced avionics systems. More importantly, she had completed flight training at the top of her class before a medical issue temporarily grounded her from pilot status. The issue had been resolved months ago, but bureaucratic processes moved slowly, and her flight status remained officially suspended while paperwork made its way through various administrative channels. Colonel Webb approached the maintenance bay where Sarah worked. "Chun, I need to speak with you privately." Sarah looked up from the diagnostic tablet she was reading, noting the serious expression on the colonel's face. "Yes, sir. Is there a problem with the aircraft?" "Walk with me," Webb said, leading her away from the other technicians. They moved to a quiet area near the hangar where their conversation wouldn't be overheard. "What I'm about to discuss with you is classified, and it involves a situation that requires unconventional solutions." Sarah nodded, her attention fully focused on the colonel's words. Intelligence indicates we're facing an imminent attack from superior numbers. We have 3 operational F-35s against what appears to be 12 enemy fighters. Under normal circumstances, I would request immediate reinforcements, but the nearest available squadron is 8 hours away, and enemy forces appear to be moving up their timeline. The implications were clear. Sarah understood aerial combat well enough to know that 3 fighters, no matter how advanced, faced nearly impossible odds against 12 opponents. "Sir, what do you need for maintenance?" "We can expedite repairs on Lieutenant Collins's aircraft, but you're still looking at 18 hours minimum." Colonel Webb studied her for a long moment. "I've reviewed your personnel file, Captain Chun. All of it. Your flight training scores, your aerospace engineering background, your time in the simulator program. I also know about your medical clearance status." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Few people on base knew about her pilot training or her medical situation. "Sir, I'm not sure what you're suggesting. I'm suggesting that desperate times require desperate measures. Your flight status may be officially suspended due to administrative delays, but your medical clearance is current, and your skills are exactly what we need right now." The weight of his words settled over her. Colonel Webb was proposing that she climb into the cockpit of an F-35 Lightning II and join the combat mission. It was a regular, possibly career ending for both of them, and definitely outside normal operational procedures. "Sir, I appreciate your confidence, but I haven't flown anything more complex than a training simulator in over a year. Combat flying is different from any training environment." "Yes, it is," Webb agreed, "but you understand these aircraft better than anyone on this base. You've maintained them, modified them, and solved problems that stump pilots with years of experience. More importantly, you want to fly them. I can see it in the way you work on these birds." Sarah looked across the flight line at the F-35s being prepared for the mission. The aircraft represented the pinnacle of fighter design, stealth capability, advanced sensors, weapons systems that could engage targets beyond visual range. She knew every technical specification, every performance parameter, every tactical advantage these planes offered. The question was whether theoretical knowledge could translate into combat effectiveness when lives depended on split-second decisions. What about the other pilots? How would they react to flying with someone who's technically ground crew? Colonel Webb smiled grimly. Major Harrison and his team are professional enough to recognize competence regardless of what uniform someone wears. Besides, they'll be more concerned about having adequate numbers than about protocol violations. The sound of jet engines warming up echoed across the base as the morning training flights began their pre-flight procedures. Sarah watched an F-35 taxi toward the runway, its pilot invisible behind the aircraft's sophisticated helmet display system. She had helped calibrate that display system just 2 days ago, ensuring that the pilot would have perfect situational awareness during flight operations. "Sir, if I agree to this, what's my cover story? How do we explain a maintenance technician suddenly appearing in a flight suit?" "Emergency pilot certification," Webb replied. "You completed all required training, your medical status is current, and operational necessity justifies immediate activation. It's not entirely by the book, but it's not entirely outside regulations either." Sarah considered the proposal from every angle she could think of. The risks were substantial, to her career, to the mission, to the other pilots who would be depending on her. But the alternative was sending 3 F-35s against 12 enemy fighters, which represented an even greater risk to everyone involved. "Sir, I'll need access to current tactical intelligence, enemy aircraft specifications, and updated threat assessments. If I'm going to do this, I need to understand exactly what we're facing." Colonel Webb's expression brightened slightly. "Does that mean you're accepting?" "It means I'm seriously considering it. But I won't endanger other pilots by being unprepared. Give me 2 hours to review everything I can about the enemy aircraft and current tactical situation. Then I'll give you my answer." Webb nodded. "Fair enough. Report to the intelligence office at 1,100 hours. Major Harrison will brief you on enemy capabilities and mission parameters." As the colonel walked away, Sarah returned to her work on the F-35, but her mind was racing with possibilities and concerns. Every system she checked, every component she tested, took on new significance. These weren't just maintenance tasks anymore. They were preparation for a mission that could determine the outcome of the entire operation. The other maintenance technicians noticed her increased focus, but attributed it to her usual thoroughness. Staff Sergeant Mike Rodriguez, who worked on avionics systems, approached with a diagnostic readout. "Sarah, take a look at this. The radar system is showing some anomalous readings, but I can't figure out what's causing them." Sarah studied the data, her mind automatically analyzing the patterns and correlating them with known system behaviors. "It's not a malfunction," she said after a moment. "The radar is detecting interference from the new electronic countermeasures package installed last week. The frequencies overlap just enough to create false returns. Adjust the filter parameters by 0.2 megahertz, and the interference should disappear." Rodriguez implemented her suggestion, and the anomalous readings immediately cleared. "How did you figure that out so quickly?" "I've been working on this for 3 hours. Experience with frequency interactions," Sarah replied, which was true but incomplete. Her aerospace engineering background had included extensive study of electronic warfare systems and their integration challenges. Understanding how different aircraft systems interacted was crucial for both maintenance and combat operations. The morning passed quickly as Sarah completed her assigned maintenance tasks while mentally preparing for the afternoon briefing. She found herself looking at the F-35s differently now, seeing them not just as complex machines requiring technical support, but as potential partners in aerial combat. Each aircraft had its own characteristics, subtle differences in how systems responded, individual quirks that experienced pilots learned to work with rather than against. At 1,055 hours, Sarah cleaned her hands, changed into a fresh uniform, and walked toward the intelligence office. The building was climate-controlled and quiet compared to the flight line, with walls covered in maps, satellite imagery, and threat assessment charts. Major Harrison was waiting with several other officers, including the pilots who would be flying the mission. "Captain Chun," Major Harrison said formally, "Colonel Webb has briefed me on your situation and qualifications. Before we proceed, I need to understand your current flight status and recent experience levels." Sarah had expected this question and prepared her response carefully. "Sir, I completed all flight training requirements 18 months ago and have maintained currency through simulator programs. My medical status is current, and my aerospace engineering background provides detailed knowledge of F-35 systems and capabilities." Lieutenant Morrison looked surprised. "You're a pilot? I thought you were maintenance crew." "I'm both," Sarah replied simply. "My technical background helps me understand how aircraft systems perform under different conditions, which translates into more effective flying techniques." Major Harrison studied her with the calculating gaze of someone who had learned to assess people quickly and accurately. "Captain, I'm going to be direct with you. This mission involves engaging superior numbers of enemy fighters in air-to-air combat. We need pilots who can think tactically, adapt to changing situations, and work as part of a coordinated team. Simulator experience is valuable, but combat flying involves stresses and decision-making challenges that can't be fully replicated in training environments." "Understood, sir. I also understand that 3 F-35s against 12 enemy fighters represents odds that require exceptional performance from every pilot involved. My technical knowledge of these aircraft may provide tactical advantages that could help level those odds." The intelligence officer, a thin captain named Williams, stepped forward with a folder containing satellite imagery and electronic surveillance data. "Let me brief everyone on what we're facing. Enemy forces have established a forward operating base here." He pointed to a location on the map, approximately 200 miles north of our position. "Reconnaissance indicates 12 fighter aircraft, composition unknown, but presumed to be advanced designs based on observed performance characteristics." Sarah studied the imagery carefully, noting details that others might overlook. The arrangement of aircraft on the enemy airfield suggested specific tactical organization, with fighters positioned for rapid launch sequences. The support equipment visible in the photographs indicated maintenance capabilities that could sustain extended operations. "Sir," Sarah said, "the aircraft positioning and support infrastructure suggest these aren't temporary deployments. They're preparing for sustained combat operations, which means this attack is likely part of a larger strategic initiative." Captain Williams nodded approvingly. "That assessment matches our intelligence analysis. Enemy forces appear to be establishing a permanent forward presence, which makes eliminating this threat even more critical." Major Harrison outlined the mission parameters: intercept enemy fighters before they could reach forward operating base Phoenix, engage and neutralize as many targets as possible, and prevent any enemy aircraft from completing attack runs on base facilities. The tactical challenges were substantial, but the F-35 stealth capabilities and advanced sensors provided some advantages. "Our primary tactical advantage," Harrison explained, "is that we can detect and engage enemy aircraft before they're aware of our presence. The Lightning II stealth characteristics make us extremely difficult to track on radar, and our sensors can identify threats at ranges exceeding enemy detection capabilities." Sarah absorbed every detail of the tactical briefing, correlating mission requirements with aircraft capabilities and her own technical knowledge. The F-35's integrated systems provided pilots with unprecedented situational awareness, but maximizing that advantage required understanding how different sensors work together and how to interpret the complex data they provided. As the briefing concluded, Major Harrison addressed her directly. "Captain Chun, are you prepared to accept this assignment?" Sarah looked around the room at the faces of pilots who would be depending on her competence and decision-making abilities in combat. The responsibility was enormous, but so was the opportunity to make a meaningful difference in the outcome of the operation. "Yes, sir. I'm ready to fly." The equipment room buzzed with activity as Sarah pulled on her flight suit for the first time in over a year. The familiar weight of the survival vest, the precise fit of the helmet, the complex array of switches and connections, everything felt both foreign and natural, like greeting an old friend after a long separation. Her hands moved through the pre-flight equipment check with muscle memory that had never quite faded. Master Sergeant Kelly Thompson, the squadron senior flight equipment specialist, helped Sarah adjust the connections between her suit and the aircraft's life support systems. "Ma'am, I've got to say, this is the most unusual equipment fitting I've done in 20 years. Usually we're suiting up pilots, not maintenance techs." "Today I'm both," Sarah replied, checking the seal on her oxygen mask. The equipment felt heavier than she remembered, but that was probably nerves rather than any actual weight difference. "How do the systems look?" "Everything checks out perfectly. Your suit interfaces match the aircraft specifications, and all connections test positive." Thompson paused, studying Sarah with experienced eyes. "Ma'am, can I ask you something? How long since you've been in actual combat?" "I haven't," Sarah admitted. "All my flight experience has been training scenarios and simulation exercises." Thompson nodded thoughtfully. "Well, ma'am, I've equipped pilots for over 300 combat missions. The ones who come back are usually the ones who remember their training, trust their equipment, and don't try to be heroes. These F-35s are smart birds. Let them help you do your job." Sarah appreciated the advice. Thompson had probably equipped pilots who didn't return from missions, and his perspective came from seeing both successful and unsuccessful outcomes. "Sergeant, what's your assessment of our chances today?" "Honestly, 4 Lightning IIs against 12 enemy fighters should be manageable, assuming everyone does their job correctly. These aircraft are designed for exactly this kind of situation." Thompson secured the final connection on her equipment harness. "But, ma'am, the most important thing is that your wingmen trust you. If they're worried about your experience level, it affects their decision-making, and that's when people get hurt." The wisdom in his words was obvious. Sarah would need to demonstrate competence quickly and maintain it throughout the mission. Any hesitation or confusion on her part could create vulnerabilities that enemy pilots would exploit. Major Harrison appeared in the equipment room doorway. "Chun, ready for the final briefing?" "Yes, sir." Sarah followed Harrison to a smaller conference room where the other three pilots were studying tactical charts and aircraft specifications. The atmosphere was professional but tense, with the focused concentration that preceded dangerous missions. Lieutenant Morrison looked up as she entered. "Sarah, I've been thinking about your technical background. Can you explain the electromagnetic signature differences between our F-35s and the enemy aircraft we're likely to face?" The question was clearly a test, and Sarah recognized it as such. Morrison wanted to understand her actual knowledge level before trusting her in combat. The F-35 stealth design reduces radar cross-section to approximately the size of a golf ball, compared to conventional fighters that appear as large as automobiles on radar screens. Our electromagnetic emissions are also managed through integrated systems that minimize detectability. "What about when we activate weapons systems?" asked Captain Linda Ghost Martinez, the squadron's most experienced pilot after Harrison. "Weapons bay doors opening temporarily increases our radar signature, but the exposure time is measured in seconds. The key is coordinating weapons release to minimize vulnerability windows while maintaining tactical advantage." Captain Martinez nodded approvingly. "Good. What's the effective engagement range for our AM?" 20 missiles against targets with active electronic countermeasures. Sarah had studied these specifications extensively during her aerospace engineering program and recent simulator training. Approximately 60 miles against conventional targets, but that decreases to 45 miles when facing advanced electronic warfare systems. However, our sensors can track targets at ranges exceeding 80 miles, giving us significant tactical planning advantages. Major Harrison interrupted the impromptu examination. "Gentlemen, lady, we can continue the technical discussion during flight operations. Right now, we need to focus on mission coordination and tactical planning." The final briefing covered flight formations, communication protocols, and engagement priorities. Sarah absorbed every detail while mentally correlating tactical requirements with aircraft capabilities. The mission would begin with a high-altitude approach using the F-35 stealth characteristics to achieve surprise. Once enemy aircraft were detected and identified, the four Lightning IIs would split into two ship elements for coordinated attacks. "Chun," Harrison said, "you'll be flying as my wingman. Stay close, follow my lead, and don't attempt any independent maneuvering unless I'm engaged and unable to provide guidance. Your job is to support the team effort, not to prove anything." "Understood, sir." Martinez and Morrison will form the second element. We'll maintain communication through encrypted channels, and all target engagement requires verbal confirmation before weapons release. Harrison's expression was serious as he emphasized the final point. This is live combat with real consequences. Hesitation can be deadly, but so can rushing. Trust your training, trust your equipment, and trust your wingman. The walk to the flight line felt longer than usual, though Sarah knew the distance hadn't changed. The weight of her equipment seemed heavier with each step, and her awareness of every sound, every detail, every sensation became almost overwhelming. This was the difference between training and reality. The knowledge that decisions made in the next few hours could determine whether she and her fellow pilots returned safely to base. The F-35 Lightning II, designated as her aircraft, sat gleaming in the desert sun, its angular surfaces reflecting light in ways that seemed to make the aircraft appear smaller than its actual dimensions. Ground crews moved around each fighter with practiced efficiency, conducting final inspections and loading weapons systems. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez approached as Sarah began her external aircraft inspection. "Ma'am, I've triple-checked all systems on your bird. Everything tests perfect. Engines, avionics, weapons, life support. She's ready to fly." "Thank you, Sergeant. Any last-minute issues I should know about?" "No, ma'am. This particular aircraft has always been reliable. She responds well to pilot inputs and has never shown any tendency toward unexpected behavior. Rodriguez paused. Ma'am, if you don't mind me saying, it's good to see someone who understands these birds getting a chance to fly them. Sarah completed her external inspection methodically, checking every surface, every access panel, every external system for signs of damage or malfunction. The F-35 appeared flawless, but appearances could be deceiving, especially when lives depended on aircraft reliability. The cockpit felt familiar despite her extended absence from flying duties. Every switch, every display, every control was exactly where her training had taught her to expect them. The aircraft systems came online with gentle hums and soft beeps as she worked through the startup procedures. The head-up display activated, providing a wealth of information about aircraft status, environmental conditions, and tactical situation. Phoenix Base, Lightning 4 requesting engine start clearance. Lightning 4, you're cleared for engine start. Weather conditions are clear, winds light and variable. The F-35's single engine spooled up smoothly, building power with the controlled precision that characterized modern fighter aircraft. Engine parameters appeared normal on her displays, with temperatures, pressures, and rotational speeds all within expected ranges. The aircraft felt solid and responsive as she tested control surface movements and verified system responses. Major Harrison's voice came through her headset. Lightning Flight, check in for departure. Lightning 2 ready. Lightning 3 ready. Sarah keyed her microphone. Lightning 4 ready. Lightning Flight, taxi for departure. Maintain standard interval and follow my lead. The 4 F-35s moved toward the runway in single file, their engines producing the distinctive whine of advanced turbofan designs. Sarah found herself focusing intently on maintaining proper spacing behind Harrison's aircraft while monitoring her engine instruments and flight systems. The multitasking requirements of fighter operations came back to her gradually, muscle memory and training combining to manage the complex workload. Phoenix Tower, Lightning Flight ready for departure. Lightning Flight, you are cleared for takeoff. Contact departure control on frequency 127.3 after airborne. Harrison's F-35 accelerated down the runway with a smooth power that made the Lightning II seem almost effortless in its performance. Sarah watched his aircraft rotate and climb away before beginning her own takeoff roll. The acceleration pressed her back into the ejection seat as 40,000 pounds of thrust drove the fighter forward with increasing speed. At rotation speed, she pulled back gently on the control stick, and the F-35 lifted off the runway with the positive response that characterized well-designed aircraft. The ground dropped away quickly as she climbed to join the formation, her attention divided between maintaining visual contact with the other aircraft and monitoring her engine and flight systems. Lightning 4, close up to parade formation, Harrison instructed. Sarah adjusted her position until she was flying just 50 feet from Harrison's wing tip, close enough to see details of his aircraft's surface and weapons loadout. The formation climbing through 10,000 feet looked like a textbook demonstration of precision flying for advanced fighters moving together with perfect coordination. Departure control, Lightning Flight passing 15,000 feet, requesting clearance to tactical altitude. Lightning Flight, climb, and maintain flight level 300. Contact tactical frequency 141.7 for mission control. At 30,000 feet, the 4 F-35s leveled off and spread into tactical formation. The aircraft were now separated by several miles, positioned to provide mutual support while maintaining the flexibility needed for combat maneuvering. Sarah's aircraft felt stable and responsive at altitude, with all systems functioning normally. Lightning Flight switched to tactical frequency, Harrison commanded. Sarah changed radio frequencies and immediately heard the controlled voice of the airborne early warning aircraft that would provide tactical coordination for their mission. Lightning Flight, This is Overwatch. We have multiple contacts bearing 040 degrees from your position, range 150 miles. Count shows 12 aircraft in loose formation, course south toward your operating area. The enemy aircraft were still over an hour away from forward operating base Phoenix, but they were definitely heading in that direction with apparent hostile intent. Sarah checked her weapons systems display, confirming that her AM-120 air-to-air missiles were properly loaded and ready for engagement. Overwatch, Lightning Lead. Request detailed threat assessment on the contacts. Lightning Lead, stand by for full briefing. Contacts appear to be advanced fighter aircraft, probable twin-engine design based on radar signature analysis. Formation suggests coordinated attack profile with electronic warfare support. Sarah absorbed this information while monitoring her aircraft systems and maintaining formation position. 12 enemy fighters against 4 F-35s remained challenging odds, but the Lightning II stealth capabilities and advanced sensors provided tactical advantages that could help balance the numerical disadvantage. Lightning Flight, this is Lead. Execute tactical spread and prepare for engagement approach. Remember your training and trust your equipment. The 4 F-35s separated into 2 ship elements as planned, with Harrison and Sarah forming one element while Martinez and Morrison formed the second. The aircraft were now positioned to approach the enemy formation from different angles, maximizing their ability to achieve tactical surprise. Sarah's hands moved over her cockpit controls with increasing confidence as combat systems activated and weapons became ready for engagement. The F-35's sophisticated helmet display provided three-dimensional awareness of the tactical situation, showing friendly and enemy aircraft positions in real time. Every system seemed to be functioning perfectly, and she felt ready for whatever would come next. Lightning 4, how are you feeling? Harrison asked on their private communication channel. Confident and ready, sir. Aircraft is performing flawlessly, and all systems show green. Good. Stay close and follow my lead. We're about to find out just how good these Lightning IIs really are in actual combat. The distance to the enemy formation continued to decrease as the F-35s maintained their approach. Sarah's aircraft flew smoothly through the thin air at high altitude, its stealth characteristics making it nearly invisible to enemy sensors, while its own sensors tracked the approaching threat with precise accuracy. In 30 minutes, they would be in missile range. In 45 minutes, the real test would begin. The tactical display in Sarah's helmet showed the enemy formation as a collection of red triangles moving steadily south toward forward operating base Phoenix. At 70 miles distance, the 12 aircraft maintained a loose formation that suggested coordination, but not the tight discipline of a truly elite unit. Sarah studied their movement patterns while monitoring her own aircraft systems, noting subtle details that might provide tactical advantages. Lightning Flight, this is Overwatch. Enemy formation has split into 3 elements of 4 aircraft each. Lead element continues direct approach to target area. Second and third elements are maneuvering to flanking positions. Major Harrison's voice came through the encrypted channel. Copy, Overwatch. Lightning Flight. Execute Alpha 7 approach. 2 elements. Coordinate for simultaneous engagement. Sarah recognized the tactical maneuver from her training. Alpha 7 involved approaching the enemy formation from different altitudes and angles, maximizing the effectiveness of their stealth capabilities while creating confusion about the actual number and location of attacking aircraft. The F-35 stealth characteristics would make them difficult to detect until they were within missile range. Lightning 4. Maintain position at my 7 o'clock. We'll approach from below their formation, while 3 and 2 take the high approach. Copy, Lightning Lead. Sarah adjusted her altitude to follow Harrison's aircraft as they descended slightly below the enemy formation's flight path. The tactical advantage was clear. Attacking from below made them even more difficult to detect while providing optimal geometry for missile engagement. At 50 miles, the enemy aircraft were clearly visible on Sarah's radar display. though her own F-35 remained invisible to their sensors. The technological advantage was significant, but 12 targets against 4 attackers still required careful planning and precise execution to avoid being overwhelmed by superior numbers. Overwatch, Lightning Lead. Request permission to engage when in range. Lightning Lead. You're cleared to engage hostile aircraft. All targets are confirmed enemy with hostile intent. Sarah felt her pulse quicken as combat authorization was granted. The training scenarios and simulator exercises had prepared her for this moment, but real combat carried consequences that no training could fully replicate. Lives depended on the decisions she would make in the next few minutes. Lightning Flight, Armed Weapons Systems. Target priority is lead element, then flanking groups. Sarah activated her weapons systems, feeling the subtle vibration through the aircraft as missiles became ready for launch. The AIM-120 air-to-air missiles loaded in her weapons bay were among the most advanced in the world, capable of engaging targets at ranges exceeding 60 miles with devastating accuracy. At 40 miles, Harrison initiated the attack sequence. Lightning Lead has radar lock on lead target. Engaging. Sarah watched the tactical display as Harrison's missile launched, appearing as a small icon racing toward the enemy formation. The AIM-120 accelerated rapidly, its sophisticated guidance system tracking the target aircraft with precision that made interception nearly inevitable. Lightning Lead, missile away. Time to impact 45 seconds. The enemy formation reacted immediately to the missile launch, breaking into evasive maneuvers that transformed their organized approach into a swirling mass of individual aircraft attempting to avoid destruction. Electronic countermeasures activated, filling the electromagnetic spectrum with signals designed to confuse incoming missiles. Lightning 4, target the second aircraft in the lead element. You have a clear shot. Sarah acquired her target through the F-35's advanced radar system, watching as the targeting computer calculated intercept vectors and optimal engagement parameters. The enemy fighter was maneuvering aggressively, but the AIM-120's guidance system was designed to handle such evasive action. Lightning 4 has radar lock. Fox 3. Sarah pressed the missile release button, feeling the aircraft shudder slightly as the AIM-120 separated from the weapons bay. The missile accelerated away from her F-35, its rocket motor creating a brief trail of exhaust that quickly dispersed in the thin air. Good shot, Lightning 4. Target is maneuvering defensively, but showing no signs of detecting our position. The tactical advantage of stealth technology became apparent as enemy aircraft continued their evasive maneuvers without appearing to know the location of their attackers. The F-35s remained invisible on enemy radar, while their own missiles closed the distance to their targets with relentless precision. Harrison's missile impacted first, the lead enemy aircraft disappearing from the tactical display in a burst of electronic interference that indicated successful destruction. Sarah's target attempted a defensive turn, but the AIM-120's guidance system compensated for the maneuver, and her missile found its target moments later. Lightning Lead, Splash 1. Lightning 4, Splash 1. Captain Martinez's voice came through the radio. Lightning 2, engaging flanking element. Multiple targets requesting support. The enemy formation's reaction to the initial attacks revealed their tactical capability and training level. Instead of panicking or retreating, the remaining 10 aircraft regrouped quickly and began searching for their attackers with systematic precision. These were experienced pilots who understood air combat and would not be easy to defeat. Lightning 3, I have missile lock on target bearing 270. Engaging. Lieutenant Morrison's missile launch was followed immediately by defensive maneuvering from his target, but the enemy pilot's evasive action came too late. The AIM-120 impacted successfully, reducing the enemy force to 9 aircraft. Sarah reloaded her targeting system and began searching for her next engagement opportunity. The enemy aircraft were now widely dispersed, making coordinated attacks more difficult, but also reducing their own ability to provide mutual support. The tactical situation was evolving rapidly, requiring constant adaptation and decision-making. Lightning 4, enemy fighter at 2 o'clock, range 30 miles, appears to be attempting an intercept. Sarah looked in the indicated direction and acquired the target on her radar display. The enemy aircraft was indeed maneuvering toward her position, though its pilot probably didn't have a precise location fix on her F-35. The stealth technology was still providing protection, but that advantage would diminish as range decreased. Lightning lead. Lightning 4 is engaging intercepting fighter. Copy 4. Take the shot when you have it. Then, rejoin formation for coordinated attack on remaining targets. Sarah refined her target acquisition, waiting for optimal engagement parameters before launching her second missile. The enemy pilot was flying aggressively, apparently attempting to locate and engage the F-35s through visual contact since radar detection remained ineffective. Lightning 4, Fox 3, missile away. Her second AAM, 120 tracked toward the enemy fighter with the same deadly precision as the first. The target aircraft began evasive maneuvers immediately, but the missile's guidance system maintained lock throughout the engagement sequence. Impact occurred at 22 miles, while outside visual range for either pilot. Lightning 4, Splash 2. The tactical display now showed 8 enemy aircraft remaining, but their formation cohesion had been severely disrupted by the stealth attacks. Several aircraft were maneuvering randomly, apparently searching for targets they couldn't locate, while others attempted to regroup into defensive formations. Lightning Flight, this is Overwatch. Enemy aircraft are requesting immediate support from their base. Intercept indicates additional fighters may be launching to reinforce current force. Major Harrison responded immediately. Copy, Overwatch. Lightning Flight will accelerate engagement timeline. All aircraft engage targets of opportunity. The tactical situation was becoming more complex as additional variables entered the equation. If enemy reinforcements arrived before the current threat was eliminated, the F-35s could find themselves facing overwhelming numbers despite their technological advantages. Sarah acquired her third target, a fighter aircraft that appeared to be attempting coordination with other survivors of the initial attack. The enemy pilot was flying competently, maintaining defensive awareness while trying to re-establish communication with his wingman. Lightning 4 has lock on target bearing 350. Engaging. This engagement felt different from the previous two. The enemy pilot seemed more aware of the threat, executing defensive maneuvers that suggested training specifically designed to counter stealth attacks. Electronic countermeasures from the target aircraft were more sophisticated, requiring Sarah's missile guidance system to work harder to maintain target acquisition. Lightning 4, missile away. Target is using advanced defensive systems. The AM-120 tracked toward its target while the enemy fighter deployed a complex array of countermeasures, including chaff, flares, and electronic jamming. For several seconds, the missile's guidance system struggled to maintain lock as it sorted through the defensive measures. "Come on," Sarah whispered, watching the tactical display as her missile closed the final miles to its target. The impact came suddenly, the enemy fighter disappearing from her radar screen as the warhead found its mark despite the sophisticated defensive measures. Sarah felt a mixture of relief and professional satisfaction at the successful engagement. Lightning 4, Splash 3. Captain Martinez announced her second successful engagement simultaneously. Lightning 2, Splash 2. Enemy formation is down to 6 aircraft. The remaining enemy fighters appeared to be regrouping for a coordinated counterattack. Finally, understanding that they were facing stealth aircraft that could engage them from beyond visual range. Their tactical adaptation was impressive, but they were now operating at half strength against opponents who remained largely undetected. Lightning 3. I'm tracking 2 bandits approaching from the northeast. They appear to be attempting a pincer movement. Lieutenant Morrison's warning highlighted the enemy's tactical competence. Despite losing half their force, the The surviving pilots were implementing coordinated maneuvers designed to trap the F-35s between multiple attack groups. Lightning Flight maintained tactical separation and prepare for defensive maneuvering. Enemy aircraft are adapting to our stealth advantage. Sarah understood Harrison's concern. As the engagement continued, the enemy pilots were learning to predict F-35 positions based on missile launch signatures and debris patterns from destroyed aircraft. The stealth advantage was diminishing, and numerical superiority was becoming more important. Lightning 4. 2 bandits approaching from your 6 o'clock, range 15 miles, and closing rapidly. Sarah checked her rear-facing sensors and confirmed the threat. 2 enemy fighters were indeed approaching her position at high speed, apparently having detected her general location through some combination of electronic signature analysis and tactical deduction. Lightning Lead. Lightning 4 is engaged defensively. Request immediate support. Copy 4. Maneuvering to assist. Brake left and maintain altitude. Sarah executed the defensive maneuver while preparing her aircraft for close-range combat. The F-35 stealth characteristics were less effective at short range, but its maneuverability and weapon systems remained superior to most conventional fighter designs. The tactical situation was intensifying rapidly as the engagement transitioned from long-range missile combat to close-quarters maneuvering. Sarah's training and technical knowledge would now be tested in the most demanding form of aerial combat. Sarah pulled her F-35 into a sharp left turn, feeling the G-forces press her body against the ejection seat as she maneuvered to avoid the 2 enemy fighters closing on her position. The advanced flight control systems managed the aircraft's response perfectly, maintaining stability even under extreme maneuvering loads that would have challenged earlier generation fighters. Her helmet display showed the pursuing aircraft as red icons maintaining aggressive pursuit, their pilots apparently determined to achieve visual contact and close-range engagement. The F-35 stealth characteristics provided less protection at short range, but Sarah's technical knowledge of the aircraft capabilities gave her insights into defensive options that most pilots might not consider. Lightning 4. Maintain your current heading for 15 seconds, then execute hard right turn, Harrison instructed through the encrypted channel. I'm positioning for support engagement, Sarah acknowledged while monitoring her pursuers through the aircraft's sophisticated sensor system. The enemy fighters were flying competently, using coordinated maneuvers designed to prevent her from escaping while setting up optimal attack positions for their weapon systems. Lightning Lead. Lightning 4. Enemy aircraft are showing advanced tactical coordination. These pilots have specific training for engaging stealth fighters. Copy that assessment. 4. Execute turn now. Sarah rolled her F-35 into a hard right turn, using the aircraft's superior maneuverability to change direction more rapidly than conventional fighters could match. The maneuver stressed both aircraft and pilot to their limits, but it achieved the desired effect of disrupting the enemy formation's attack geometry. The pursuing fighters attempted to follow her turn, but couldn't match the F-35's instantaneous response rate. Their formation loosened as each pilot struggled to maintain visual contact while executing high-G maneuvering in thin air at 30,000 feet altitude. Lightning Lead has missile lock on trailing bandit. Fox 3. Harrison's AIM-120 launched from his aircraft just as Sarah completed her defensive turn. The missile tracked toward the rear enemy fighter with the precise guidance that characterized advanced American weapons technology. The target aircraft immediately deployed countermeasures, but the range was too short for effective defensive maneuvering. Lightning Lead. Splash 4. The explosion of Harrison's target created momentary confusion for the remaining pursuing aircraft, providing Sarah with the opportunity she needed to transition from defensive to offensive maneuvering. Her technical understanding of the F-35 systems suggested a tactical option that might not be obvious to pilots with conventional training backgrounds. Lightning Lead. Lightning 4 is implementing electronic attack profile. Copy 4. Execute at your discretion. Sarah activated the F-35's electronic warfare systems, using the aircraft's sophisticated computers to jam enemy radar and communications frequencies. The electronic attack capability was one of the Lightning II's less publicized features, but her aerospace engineering background had included detailed study of its implementation and tactical applications. The effect was immediate. The remaining pursuing fighter began erratic maneuvering as its pilot lost radar contact and found communications with other aircraft severely degraded. Electronic warfare was often invisible to outside observers, but it could be devastatingly effective in disrupting enemy coordination and situational awareness. Lightning 4. Good effect on electronic attack. Enemy aircraft appears to be operating independently now. Sarah used the enemy pilot's confusion to reverse their tactical positions, converting her defensive situation into an offensive engagement opportunity. The F-35's maneuverability allowed her to complete a full reversal in less than 30 seconds, putting her behind the enemy fighter with optimal positioning for weapons engagement. Lightning 4 has radar lock. Fox 3. Her missile launch at close range gave the enemy pilot minimal time for defensive maneuvering. The AM-120 tracked its target through a series of desperate evasive turns before achieving successful intercept at 8 miles range. Lightning 4, Splash 4. Outstanding work 4. Rejoin formation for coordinated attack on remaining targets. Sarah maneuvered her F-35 back toward Harrison's position while scanning the tactical display for information about the remaining enemy aircraft. The electronic warfare attack had apparently affected more than just her immediate pursuers, as several other enemy fighters appeared to be maneuvering independently rather than as coordinated elements. Lightning Flight. This is Overwatch. Count shows 4 enemy aircraft remaining, but their formation cohesion appears to be severely degraded. Electronic emissions suggest communication difficulties. The tactical advantage was shifting decisively in favor of the F-35's. Electronic warfare capabilities combined with stealth technology and superior weapon systems had reduced a numerically superior enemy force to disorganized survivors struggling to maintain situational awareness. Lightning 2. I have visual contact on 2 bandits attempting to regroup at low altitude. Captain Martinez had identified targets attempting to escape the electronic interference by flying close to the ground where terrain features might provide some protection from jamming signals. The tactic showed tactical competence, but it also made them vulnerable to attack from above. Lightning 3. Moving to support 2's engagement. Lieutenant Morrison positioned his F-35 to coordinate with Martinez for a synchronized attack on the low-altitude targets. The tactical coordination between the American pilots demonstrated the effectiveness of their training and the superiority of their aircraft's communication systems. Lightning Flight, this is Lead. Execute coordinated engagement on all remaining targets. Maintain situational awareness for possible reinforcements. Sarah checked her weapon status and confirmed that she had sufficient missiles remaining for multiple engagements. The F-35's weapons bay could carry 6 AIM-120 missiles, and she had expended 4 during the engagement. Her remaining missiles would be adequate for the current tactical situation unless enemy reinforcements arrived in overwhelming numbers. Lightning 4, take high cover position and monitor for incoming reinforcements while we engage remaining targets. Copy, Lightning Lead. Sarah climbed her F-35 to optimal altitude for early detection of approaching aircraft while maintaining tactical awareness of the ongoing engagement below. The high cover position would allow her to intercept any enemy reinforcements before they could affect the outcome of the current battle. The tactical display showed Martinez and Morrison engaging the low-altitude targets with coordinated missile attacks. Both enemy fighters attempted evasive maneuvering, but their low altitude limited their options while making them more vulnerable to attack from above. Lightning 2, Splash 5. Lightning 3, Splash 6. Harrison's voice came through the radio with confirmation of the final engagement. Lightning Lead, Splash 7. Sarah scanned the tactical display and confirmed that all enemy contacts had been eliminated. The engagement had lasted less than 20 minutes from initial missile launch to final target destruction, demonstrating the devastating effectiveness of coordinated stealth fighter attacks against conventional aircraft. Lightning flight. This is Overwatch. Tactical area is clear of enemy aircraft. No additional threats detected on long-range sensors. Copy, Overwatch. Lightning flight is returning to base. The 4 F-35s were formed into tactical formation for the return flight to forward operating base Phoenix. Sarah felt a complex mixture of emotions as adrenaline levels began to decrease and the reality of the engagement settled into her consciousness. She had successfully completed her first combat mission, destroying 4 enemy aircraft while supporting her wingmen in eliminating the entire threat force. Lightning 4, how are you feeling? Harrison asked on their private channel. Confident and satisfied, sir. Aircraft performed flawlessly throughout the engagement. You performed flawlessly too. Your electronic warfare implementation was particularly effective. Sarah appreciated the recognition, but she also understood that individual performance was less important than team success. The mission had succeeded because all 4 pilots had executed their assigned roles competently while adapting to changing tactical conditions. Lightning flight, this is Phoenix Base. Congratulations on successful engagement. Landing clearance is approved for immediate return. The flight back to base provided time for Sarah to process the events of the past hour. Combat flying was indeed different from any training scenario, with stresses and decision-making requirements that couldn't be fully replicated in simulators. However, her technical knowledge of the F-35 systems had provided tactical advantages that helped compensate for her limited actual combat experience. More importantly, she had proven to herself and to her fellow pilots that competence could exist in unexpected places. The distinction between maintenance technician and combat pilot was less significant than the difference between someone who understood aircraft systems and someone who didn't. Lightning 4, Phoenix Tower. You're cleared for approach runway 27. Excellent work today. Sarah lined up her F-35 for landing approach, feeling the aircraft respond precisely to control inputs as she configured for landing. The desert base appeared ahead, its runways and buildings looking exactly the same as when she had departed, though her perspective on everything had changed fundamentally. The touchdown was smooth, with the F-35's landing gear absorbing the impact of contact with the runway. Sarah taxied toward the parking area where ground crews were waiting to service the returning fighters, their expressions showing curiosity about the mission results and the identity of the pilot in the 4th aircraft. As she shut down the engine and began post-flight procedures, Sarah reflected on the transformation she had experienced. This morning, she had been a maintenance technician working on aircraft systems. This afternoon, she was a combat pilot who had successfully engaged enemy fighters in actual aerial combat. Colonel Webb was waiting near her aircraft as she climbed down from the cockpit. His expression showed professional satisfaction and perhaps some relief that his unconventional decision had produced positive results. Captain Shun, I believe we need to discuss your flight status more seriously. Your performance today suggests that bureaucratic delays in processing pilot certification are no longer acceptable. Sarah removed her helmet and looked back at the F-35 that had carried her safely through her first combat mission. Sir, I think I like that discussion very much. There's something else we need to address, Webb continued. Intelligence reports suggest today's attack was part of a larger enemy offensive. We may need all available pilots for extended operations. The implication was clear. Sarah's transition from maintenance technician to combat pilot might be permanent rather than temporary, depending on strategic developments and operational requirements. The possibility was both exciting and daunting, representing career changes she hadn't anticipated when she began her day adjusting hydraulic systems. Sir, whatever the mission requires, I'm ready to serve. I believe you are, Captain. I believe you definitely are. 3 weeks after the engagement that changed everything, Captain Sarah Chun stood in the squadron briefing room, wearing the flight suit that had become her permanent uniform. The maintenance coveralls were now a memory, replaced by the professional appearance of a fully qualified F-35 pilot with 4 confirmed aerial victories and a reputation for tactical innovation that had spread throughout the entire air wing. Colonel Webb had expedited her pilot certification through channels that bypassed normal bureaucratic procedures, citing operational necessity and demonstrated competence under combat conditions. The paperwork that had delayed her flight status for months was resolved in 48 hours when senior commanders understood what had actually happened during the enemy air attack. The intelligence briefing this morning confirmed our assessment. Major Harrison announced to the assembled pilots. The attack 3 weeks ago was indeed part of a larger enemy offensive designed to eliminate our forward air presence. Since our successful defense of the base, enemy strategy appears to have shifted toward more cautious probing attacks rather than direct confrontation. Sarah reviewed the tactical analysis displayed on the briefing room screens. Enemy forces had attempted several smaller-scale attacks since the major engagement, but none had achieved their objectives. The psychological impact of losing 12 advanced fighters in a single engagement had apparently convinced enemy commanders that direct attacks on forward operating base Phoenix would be prohibitively expensive. Lieutenant Morrison raised his hand. "Sir, what's our current threat assessment for today's patrol mission?" "Intelligence suggests possible enemy reconnaissance flights in the northern sector. Our mission is to intercept and identify any aircraft approaching within 50 miles of the base perimeter." Harrison looked directly at Sarah. "Chun, you'll be leading the second element with Rodriguez as your wingman." The assignment represented another milestone in Sarah's rapid transition from ground crew to combat leader. Leading a 2-ship element meant responsibility for tactical decisions that could affect mission success and pilot safety. The trust implicit in such assignments was both flattering and intimidating. Captain Martinez approached Sarah after the briefing concluded. I've been thinking about your electronic warfare techniques from the last engagement. Have you considered developing formal procedures that other pilots could implement?" The suggestion made sense from both tactical and professional perspectives. Sarah's aerospace engineering background had enabled her to use F-35 systems in ways that weren't covered in standard pilot training programs. Sharing that knowledge could improve overall squadron capability while establishing her expertise in areas beyond basic flying skills. "I've been working on some documentation," Sarah replied. "The F-35's electronic attack capabilities are more extensive than most pilots realize, but they require understanding how different systems integrate with each other." "That's exactly what I'm talking about. Your technical background gives you insights that the rest of us miss, and that knowledge could be valuable for the entire squadron." The conversation highlighted one of the unexpected benefits of Sarah's unusual background. Most pilots learned to operate their aircraft systems effectively, but few understood the underlying engineering principles that govern system interactions. That technical knowledge provided tactical options that weren't obvious to conventionally trained aircrew. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez appeared in the doorway of the briefing room. "Ma'am, your aircraft is ready for the afternoon mission. All systems check normal, and weapons loadout is complete." Sarah appreciated the continued professionalism of the maintenance crews, who had adapted quickly to her changed status without any apparent resentment or confusion. The transition from colleague to pilot had been managed smoothly by people who understood that competence mattered more than traditional career progression patterns. "Thank you, Sergeant. Any issues I should know about?" "No, ma'am. This particular bird has been completely reliable since you started flying her regularly. The engines are running particularly smoothly, and all avionics systems are performing above specification." The walk to the flight line felt routine now, though Sarah still experienced a moment of appreciation each time she approached an F-35 Lightning II. These aircraft represented the pinnacle of fighter technology, and being qualified to fly them remained an extraordinary privilege regardless of how familiar the procedures had become. Captain Luis Rodriguez, her wingman for this mission, was completing his external inspection when she arrived at her aircraft. Rodriguez was an experienced pilot with over 200 flight hours in the F-35, and his acceptance of her leadership position had helped establish her credibility with other squadron members. Sarah, weather conditions look perfect for today's patrol. Clear skies, unlimited visibility, and light winds. We should have excellent sensor performance throughout the mission. Good. Intelligence thinks we might encounter reconnaissance flights, so we'll need optimal detection capability. Sarah began her own external inspection, checking every aspect of her aircraft with a thoroughness that had become habitual during her maintenance technician days. The pre-flight procedures felt natural now, muscle memory combining with technical understanding to manage the complex startup sequences efficiently. Sarah's aircraft responded to each input with a precision that characterized well-maintained military equipment, engines stabilizing at proper parameters while avionics systems activated smoothly. Phoenix Base, Falcon Flight requesting taxi clearance for patrol mission. Falcon Flight, you are cleared to taxi. Contact tower on frequency 118.7 for departure clearance. The two F-35s moved toward the runway in tactical formation, maintaining proper spacing while conducting final systems checks. Sarah monitored her engine parameters carefully, noting that Rodriguez had been correct about the engines running smoothly. Everything about her aircraft felt optimal for the mission ahead. Falcon Flight, you are cleared for takeoff. Contact departure control after airborne for tactical handoff. Sarah's F-35 accelerated down the runway with a controlled power that never failed to impress her. The transition from ground roll to airborne flight remained one of aviation's most satisfying experiences, representing the moment when engineering theory became practical reality. At patrol altitude, the two fighters spread into tactical formation, covering the northern approach to forward operating base Phoenix. Sarah's sensors swept the surrounding airspace systematically, searching for any aircraft that might represent reconnaissance threats or preparation for another attack. Falcon Lead, this is Overwatch. We're showing possible contact bearing 020 degrees, range 80 miles. Single aircraft, course, and speed suggest reconnaissance profile. Copy, Overwatch. Falcon Flight is investigating. Sarah adjusted her heading toward the reported contact while activating long-range sensor systems designed to identify aircraft types and configurations at maximum detection range. The F-35 stealth characteristics would allow them to approach the unknown aircraft without being detected, providing optimal conditions for identification and assessment. Falcon 2 maintain tactical separation and prepare for identification approach. Copy, Falcon Lead. The contact appeared on Sarah's tactical display as they closed range, showing characteristics consistent with a high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft rather than a fighter. The flight profile suggested systematic intelligence, gathering rather than aggressive probing, but determining actual intent required closer examination. At 40 miles range, Sarah's sensors identified the contact as a twin-engine aircraft configured for electronic intelligence gathering. The aircraft was maintaining steady course and altitude while operating sophisticated collection equipment designed to analyze electromagnetic emissions from ground installations. Overwatch, Falcon Lead. Contact identified as electronic reconnaissance aircraft, maintaining surveillance and preparing for intercept if aircraft continues toward restricted airspace. Copy, Falcon Lead. You're authorized to intercept if contact penetrates the 30-mile exclusion zone. Sarah monitored the reconnaissance aircraft's progress while considering tactical options. Electronic intelligence gathering was a common military activity, but aircraft approaching within 30 miles of forward operating base Phoenix represented potential security threats that required active response. Falcon 2, the contact is approaching exclusion zone boundaries. Prepare for intercept maneuver. Ready for intercept, Falcon Lead. The reconnaissance aircraft crossed the 30-mile boundary exactly as Sarah expected, confirming that its mission involved gathering intelligence about base operations rather than conducting innocent transit flights. The systematic approach suggested professional military reconnaissance rather than casual border testing. Overwatch, Falcon Lead. Contact has penetrated restricted airspace. Implementing standard intercept procedures. Copy, Falcon Lead. Execute intercept at your discretion. Sarah positioned her F-35 for optimal intercept geometry while Rodriguez maneuvered to provide tactical support. The intercept would be conducted according to established protocols designed to communicate clearly with unknown aircraft while maintaining defensive readiness. The reconnaissance aircraft appeared unaware of the approaching F-35s until Sarah positioned her fighter directly alongside at close range. The stealth technology had allowed them to achieve intercept position without being detected, demonstrating the tactical effectiveness that had made the Lightning II so valuable in air defense roles. Unknown aircraft. This is United States Air Force. You have entered restricted military airspace. Adjust course immediately to exit restricted area. The radio transmission produced immediate response from the reconnaissance aircraft, which began a gentle turn away from forward operating base Phoenix while maintaining steady altitude. The crew's professional compliance suggested military aviation training and understanding of intercept procedures. Falcon Lead. The aircraft is complying with instructions and exiting restricted airspace. Sarah maintained formation position alongside the reconnaissance aircraft until it had cleared the 30-mile exclusion zone, ensuring that the compliance was genuine rather than temporary maneuvering designed to resume intelligence-gathering activities. Overwatch, Falcon Lead. Unknown aircraft has exited restricted airspace and is continuing on northbound heading. Threat assessment is minimal. Copy, Falcon Lead. Resume normal patrol activities. The intercept had been conducted smoothly and professionally, representing exactly the kind of routine air defense activity that justified maintaining fighter aircraft at forward bases. Sarah felt satisfied with the mission execution while recognizing that such encounters would probably become increasingly common as enemy forces adapted their strategies. Falcon 2, good work on the intercept. Let's continue patrol coverage of the northern sector. Copy, Falcon Lead. That was textbook execution. The remainder of the patrol mission proceeded without additional contacts or incidents. Sarah used the time to practice tactical maneuvering while monitoring surrounding airspace for any signs of enemy activity. The F-35 sensors provided comprehensive situational awareness, but maintaining proficiency required constant training and practice. As they returned to base at the conclusion of the mission, Sarah reflected on how dramatically her life had changed in less than a month. The transformation from maintenance technician to combat pilot had occurred so rapidly that she sometimes still felt surprised to find herself in the cockpit of an advanced fighter aircraft. The landing approach felt routine now, with her F-35 responding precisely to control inputs as she configured for touchdown. The aircraft had performed flawlessly throughout the mission, maintaining the reliability that allowed pilots to focus on tactical requirements rather than mechanical concerns. Colonel Webb was waiting in the Squadron Operations Center when Sarah completed her post-flight procedures. His expression suggested important news, possibly related to strategic developments or operational changes that would affect squadron activities. Captain Chun, I have orders from higher command regarding your status and future assignments. Sarah felt momentary concern about the implications of official orders. Her rapid transition from ground crew to pilot had involved irregular procedures that might require administrative corrections or modifications. Sir, what do the orders specify? Webb smiled broadly. You've been selected for advanced tactical training at the Fighter Weapons School. Your performance here has attracted attention from people who develop air combat tactics for the entire Air Force. The Fighter Weapons School represented the pinnacle of tactical aviation, training instructor pilots who would return to operational squadrons as experts in advanced combat techniques. Selection for such training was extremely competitive and represented professional recognition of exceptional competence. Sir, I'm honored by the selection, but I've only been flying operationally for 3 weeks. Sometimes exceptional circumstances produce exceptional opportunities, Webb replied. Your technical background, combined with demonstrated combat effectiveness, makes you exactly the kind of pilot they need for developing new tactical procedures. Sarah considered the implications of advanced tactical training and the career opportunities it would provide. The assignment would mean leaving Forward Operating Base Phoenix, but it would also establish her as a recognized expert in F-35 operations and air combat tactics. When do the orders take effect? 2 weeks. That gives you time to complete transition training for your replacement and finish documenting the electronic warfare procedures you've developed. The timeline was ambitious but manageable. Sarah had been working on formal documentation of her technical innovations, and completing that work would ensure that her tactical developments would benefit other pilots even after her departure. As she walked back toward her quarters that evening, Sarah looked up at the F-35s parked on the flight line. 3 weeks ago, she had been working on these aircraft as a maintenance technician with dreams of flying them someday. Today, she was a combat pilot with confirmed aerial victories and orders to the most advanced tactical training program in the world. Sometimes, she reflected, the most important transformations happened when people were ready to recognize opportunities that had always been present. She had always been qualified to fly these aircraft. It had just taken the right circumstances for that qualification to be recognized and utilized. The desert sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors as another day ended at Forward Operating Base Phoenix. Tomorrow would bring new missions, new challenges, and continued opportunities to serve as both pilot and technical expert. But tonight, Sarah Chun could simply appreciate the satisfaction of knowing that competence, when properly applied, could transform not just individual careers, but entire perceptions of what was possible.